The first one we're going to talk about here is RPA. So some key things to think about when we're doing it. Where does it fit? What is its robotic process automation? Where you're going to see value on this is repetitive manual tasks. And I've got some use cases down here. That's everything, and it's hard to believe. I guess it's not hard to believe, but RPA has been around for a few years too, and we've sort of always had a hesitation to think about it. Since we've started having these conversations, it's amazing the scenarios that we find. How many people in companies today have spreadsheets of information that they are manually keying into, say, their ERP or other systems that they've got? And I'll give you one scenario. We're talking to somebody right now who came to us and said every day they have an API integration they take a data feed from different systems into their ERP. But there's one screen, a journal entry screen, and they don't have the ability to update data into that screen. So they actually have somebody that all day long they sit there, they take data from a spreadsheet and they key it into that one screen. RPA, the bot, super simple, super easy to implement, and they can automate that daily thing, which frees that person who's just entering data all day long, frees them up to do something more valuable themselves. Another good scenario here is if there's no API or other integration method. Obviously, if there is, that's the way to go. But it's amazing how many state websites, how many credentialing sites where people in, say, in the insurance industry reach out to verify credentials for, say, doctors or physicians or information, doesn't really matter, any kind of certifications, unemployment processing. State websites are not the most technologically advanced sites. So organizations have people every day that are going out, downloading information off of these websites, bringing it into your organization, and then getting it into the systems that it ultimately needs to get into. It's a perfect scenario for RPA. It can simulate almost any human interaction. So unless there's some nuance decision process, RPA can do some pretty advanced logic, even depending on, even if it's you go out to the site and there's something there, or based on the information it finds on a website, it can take multiple paths, things along those lines, very advanced. And it's simple pricing. So before I turn it over to Jason, just want to make sure it's a pretty straightforward process. You can actually do the RPA bots outside of OnBase. You can purchase them separately. It is a 10K per bot annual subscription. It's not a hard ROI case to make because most of these people that are doing this manual work, I actually just talked to one where we're having a conversation with another situation where they're hiring between $30,000 and $40,000 an FTE that they were about to hire because they had job applications on a website that they needed to take the PDF of the resume, take some information out of the resume, and then move it forward in the process. And they were, so one bot can not only take care of that, but take care of other processes as well. So the ROI on these things are generally pretty quick to get to. And then implementation is you don't have to integrate with OnBase. Of course, a big value is potential integration with OnBase. Let's say on that ERP example that it's in a workflow queue, and from a workflow queue, you could trigger a bot to go out to a site to pull down information that normally a human would do from within that workflow queue. So lots of flexibility, very cool, very easy to use. Highland did an acquisition of Another Monday is the name of the product, and that's part of why it's also separate. And we've engaged in that. Jason has been heads down, neck deep in looking at this solution. He's going to share with you some of what he's found. But it's really a nice solution. We're really excited about it. The configuration has just very intuitive Visio type screens as you're developing out the process and the steps. Very point and click configurable, and so a lot of great value there. So Jason, I'm going to at this point. I don't think we had any questions yet.
Nope, not yet.
Okay. So Jason's going to kind of show you a couple examples. I'm going to stop sharing, Jason, and feel free to take it over. So we'll take a pause after Jason finishes kind of showing you some technical examples and take any questions, and then we'll move on to low-code app development.
Right. You all see my screen? Should say LDMC on it.
Yep.
All right, good deal. So yeah, RPA, I tell you what, I think everybody on the call pretty much I know or knows me from at least to some extent, and some of you I've known for a long time. So you probably know I don't get super excited about the new technology stuff coming out very often because a lot of times you hear about it day one and you know, if you're like most of us and you're behind the scenes trying to implement these things, it may be actually day 60 or so before it's to the point where you can truly get it to do what you want. That is not the case with RPA at all. I've been extremely impressed with this thing so far. I really, I knew about it from a few years back, and at that point had kind of looked at a few things and wasn't terribly impressed. But now the capabilities, it's pretty cool. So what we've done here today is, rather than flipping around VMs all day, I've got a couple processes that I want to show you that they're just recorded, but we'll walk through them. I'm going to pause them as we go here and kind of talk about what's happening. So this first one is a really simple one that we built way back when we were first just dipping our toe in the water on RPA, and we were trying to figure out just even, an example to use it for, just to try to test it out basically. And so our fearless leader, Mike, is a PMP certified individual. So he had a good idea. We went onto the website to check his PMP status. So I'm going to go ahead and play this. This is a really simple bot. What it's going to do, it's going to open that website. It's going to do a search on Mike's information, and you can see it's running right now and doing its thing. It's going to do a search on Mike. The grid will come back with the results with a hit list. It's going to take some of that grid information. Now I'm not doing this. This is all bot doing this stuff. So there's a result list. Take that grid, take that individual result in this case. It grabs a little bit of data out of that row. So it's grabbing his city, state right there, I think is it, and the status as well. In this case, and there's our little sample here, just pops it up. However, this thing can do so much with that data too. One of the things we're playing with right now for someone else is it's got capabilities to send emails all over the place too. So even as I think back to just this first example of kind of dipping my toe in the water with this thing, well, would I pop up a message box? No, probably not. But what might be really useful is if the bot goes out on a scheduled basis, reading from a data file somewhere or a database somewhere of people that it needs to check. And for each one, it checks them, and if they're expired or inactive or whatever status we want, then we send them an email and say, hey, just a heads up, you're expired or you're about to expire or whatever it is. And then, of course, we got OnBase behind the scenes so we can capture those emails too. So now we've got the audit trail. So just one more thing, right? So that's just one very simple example here. I'm going to pop open another one. This one gets much more complex, still just a video, and I'm still going to pause it and kind of show you what's going on as we go through it. So both of these examples are website driven. Mike told you, though, we've already been talking to folks. We've got a ton of examples coming up left and right, actually, of things that have nothing to do with websites, where this could be very useful as well. Actually, we just found out, too, that our parent company, of course, is the accounting firm. They've got some interesting use cases that everybody's getting pretty excited about as well. So there's a lot of stuff popping up. But let's look at this one here. This is also website driven. This guy is going to go out. It's got a couple directories here and nothing down there. I'm going to pause in a couple spots and kind of give you my voiceover of what's happening. So just showing you everything's blank. So on the right side, you see this medical policy updates document. Okay, so this is the first thing with a bunch of links in there. So what this bot is first going to do, it's going to go out and download this medical policy update file from United Healthcare's site. Okay, once it's done that, it's going to go through for each one of these 30-ish whatever links. Behind the scenes, it's going to click on each one of those links, download the file that it points to the local machine, and then finally, you see it open this search file right here, this text file. Finally, it's going to open up every single one of those PDFs that it just downloaded, do a search behind the scenes on these text strings, these keywords, and then if they're found, it's going to go ahead and put them in the keywords found subfolder. If they're not found, in the keywords not found. So now you can see. Those of you familiar with OnBase, which I think is everybody on here, you can imagine now taking that instead of just doing a subdirectory, but now we're dealing with OnBase too, right? So now we've got workflow behind the scenes once we bring them down and give them a status or get the keyword data in there. Now you've got all the power of workflow deciding what happens with it and where it goes. But here's the designer. I do have a little breakpoint stopping it right here on purpose, so it's going to run a little slower in this video intentionally because I don't want it to go too fast. However, I did speed it up in a couple spots too, so we don't have to watch it do 35 downloads. All right, so fired it off. Going to compile here, give it a second to think about it. I'll talk about how this works not manual here in a second before we're done as well. All right, so we're firing up the website. It's going to go out now to the United Healthcare site first and download that June of 2021 medical update and bulletin. There's the file. We brought it down. Like's good. So next step is now that that file's been saved, which is doing right here, now it's going to go back through it and start clicking each one of those links and doing the downloads. So there's the first save. We're going to get a separate browser window in a second here. And you can see too, you know, if you're thinking, when you're thinking API, you're thinking kind of almost instantaneous for these things happening behind the scenes, right? And it's important to note too, these bots, it's not instantaneous. But where the value is in most cases, it's still a heck of a lot faster than when a human can do it. And the bots don't get tired. So these things can run, you know, 24/7, 365, basically. All right, so open up a second browser window now. So now what it's doing is it's opened up that initial bulletin behind the scenes. If you don't even see it, it's opened up in memory, and it's actually firing off every one of those links, and it's going to download each one of those existing specific medical procedure area update files. And you can see we're building up in there what it's doing. I sped the video up in a second here, so after it does a few, it goes much quicker. Give it a second here, I think we'll speed up. If you're not prepared for it to speed up and catch you off guard too, I sent this video to Mike and he said, whoa, I didn't know what was going on. Downloading each one, making some decisions. It's not on the front end of this one too. That's an interesting point too. It's not, you know, there you go, it's gonna speed up now. You can see now that we're pretty straightforward. It's doing the same thing all 30 some times or whatever it is. But another thing that we're done, we're working with some folks, actually a couple on the call right now, to prove out a few processes for them with RPA. And what I've really been impressed with as well is its decision-making capabilities behind the scenes. So, you know, you saw the Visio screenshot that Mike's put out there with the administration part. You know, it's truly, we're checking values, we're taking data, we're seeing where it is, or seeing where it needs to go, or seeing what the contents of the data is, and then making the bot is making decisions on that and taking separate actions, you know, based on what it is, what that data is. So I think we're almost done here. Excuse me. It was such a cool process. I had to let it run. I probably could have chopped this out, but it's Monday morning. You guys want to watch this, right? All right, we're getting close. There we go. Okay, so, the last thing here, interesting too, we actually intentionally popped it up on this site that had a pop-up window with their policy terms and conditions. We wanted a screenshot of that too, so it went out and actually took that and saved that as well. Okay, so now it's going to stop here in a second. This is that stop point that I put in there. And what the video is going to show you next is, now of course we saw it, but we're going to jump over and look at the directory, and there's all our files. So that's all the individual PDFs that the thing went out and downloaded, all that started as individual links within the first document that it went out and got and downloaded. Now the next step is, now it's going to start opening each one of these guys behind the scenes in memory and doing a search for those keyword terms. And if it finds them, put them in one location. Doesn't find them, put them in another. So start it back up. Second to get going. And then we'll just start disappearing. Nothing's popping up. You don't see anything. This is all happening behind the scenes. But boy, I think this is one good example right here. Think about how long does it take, even if you're doing, you know, find for 6 terms, right? How long does it take for a human to open that file and do a find across the document for 6 or 7 different terms, or 30 or whatever it may be, and make a decision after that? You can see I sped the video back up here, so it's going pretty quick to burn through them, but it's fast. It was, you know, 2-3 seconds per document flying through, so that's a pretty good time saver. And then I think once we finish here, we're going to just show kind of where they ended up. Process completed. Good deal. And we got most of them. Looks like 26. They found the keywords in, and I don't remember how many were not found. 8. But we had quite a few. So that's one sample process. Again, you know, does it apply specifically to you? Probably not. But just as an example of kind of what's capable, and I can't stress enough, it's not just websites. That seems to be a common use so far, and you can imagine, because Mike was saying before, you know, you get some antiquated websites. But I think it's even more than that. I think also, you know, in a lot of cases, the websites and the data you guys are after, you know, these are people that are not beholden to you, right? So it is either a customer, or it is some government entity, or it is, you know, somebody that you have no control over whatsoever. So there's no, you know, there's no reason for them basically to kill themselves to put an API in place that you guys can hit. And there's never going to be, right? That's on you, not on them. And that's where RPA comes into play, really just taking those situations and speeding them up. All right, I'm going to stop sharing the videos for the moment, but hopefully there's some questions after that one. No, wow, nothing in the chat. Okay, well, let me blow your mind and get some questions going. All right, so structure of how this works too, and this is an important thing to realize. Right now what we're doing is I'm going in here, and you saw in the videos I went in and I manually started these processes. So this stuff, although it works really well with OnBase, you can try it independent of OnBase as well. They've actually got a 60-day window download out there where you can go and download 2 components, not all 4. There's 4 components to the whole thing, but you can download 2 of them, one of which you're looking at right here on the screenshot, and you can go ahead and build out the most complex process you want. Now, what you're going to have to do is run it manually, but it gives you a great way to go test it out, go figure out how it works, figure out how it's going to work with your process, all that stuff. And then if you want to move forward, it's just a question of adding those bots after that. From a structure standpoint, behind the scenes, there are 4 main components to this thing. What you're looking at right here is designer. That's kind of the main guts, in my opinion. I mean, that's where you're actually building these processes and telling the bot what you want to happen. There's another one called analyst. What the analyst tool will do is actually, it was designed originally actually to be a documentation tool, but it can even be more than that. So what analyst will do is it runs some behind the scenes stuff while you're having yourself, or while you're having a user, whoever, go out and do the steps that you want to automate, and analyst is recording those. And of course, that's great that you can document them, but what you can also do then is actually save that file and bring it into Designer, and you've got a good jumping off point now for building your process out. And you're going to change some things, right? And you'll add some stuff, but it's a good way to document the process, but also a good way to get going. And then the last 2 pieces are Conductor and Manager. Manager is a window into the behind the scenes where I can say, okay, well, you know what, I don't want to hard code, a login for a website to 20 different bots because that login is going to change someday. Well, you don't have to. You save all that in Manager. It's all encrypted. It's all behind the scenes. That's where you manage all those kind of variables and paths and things like that. And then your bots just rely on that data when they go to run, and they pull that back and use it. And then Conductor, Conductor is the guy that actually makes them work, okay? So Conductor is the guy that's watching the schedule and saying, all right, well, it's 9 a.m. on a Monday. Hey, I need someone to do this process. How many bots do we have out there, and who's free? Okay, on bot 2, you're free. Go run this process.